take you home.
Hello and welcome to the Help My Unbelief podcast, the #1 Christian podcast designed for the unbeliever. What's up, dude?
How are you doing?
You got ready pretty quick.
Yeah, that was a good week that we had.
Or should I say, what's up,
Are we going to talk about our visitor?
I was going to say, what's up, Grumpy?
Grumpy? I'm past the grumpy. I'm a little disappointed in myself, but I'm past the grumpy.
Are you? Okay, so for the people that know you and listen every week,
Let's finish the intro and then go into that.
Let them know. But this is an intro. Let them know you're okay. Let the listeners know that you're fine.
I'm okay.
Karina and everybody else.
I'm okay, Karina. I love y'all, everybody else.
Fine. He's 60. What do you expect? Every now and then he's going to get cranky. You know what I mean?
Apparently beyond my capabilities to handle it last week. So we'll address that here in a few minutes.
Yeah. Well, do I have a glare on him?
No, that's your forehead.
I think it's my forehead. It's your forehead.
So are you going to share with the people about our visitor this weekend?
Oh, Jess.
I think we ought to talk to him.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't follow us on social media and stuff, you just listen to the podcast, which it was episode 14. Pagan Witch Jess came to church with us here at Discovery Church at 900 East Main in Yukon, Oklahoma.
And I want to give a shout out to Dan the man.
Dan,
he was with her. Listens
to the podcast.
He's an awesome guy. I first off, hats off. He's Air Force. Secondly, he was an officer, so there you go. And I really enjoyed my time visiting with him as well.
I will say this. Jess is still my first future ex-witch. She's not a current ex-witch.
One step closer.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, I was extremely proud of our church. First off, we had family day this weekend, this Sunday. And our church... Man, got together, had a little cookout, after church, and we had baptisms in the middle of church.
I liked how they
kind
did
of liked
that.
how that segued in, and then we went back into praise. I thought that was pretty good.
I actually liked that a lot. Yeah.
It's kind of hard to do when you got 20, but we had 5, so a smaller group getting baptized. I'd rather do that every week, But with that said, Jess was welcome. I even introduced her to a few people that I know actually listens to the podcast. And I said, hey, this is one of the people that...
Did you introduce her to Belinda?
Belinda wasn't here. Her husband's been sick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Belinda wasn't here. Hi, Belinda. He's been in rehab right now.
Yeah.
He's had some issues. Anyway, no, but I did introduce her to a couple of them that I knew listened to the podcast.
Did you introduce
what
her
I
to
didn't
Philip?
know was one of her brothers here at church was actually from the area that she's from. I thought he was a backwood Okie.
Did you introduce her to Philip?
Philip?
I did.
Did you?
Yeah. I mean, I had a lot of stuff going on Sunday. So, I mean, I didn't get to introduce her to everybody, but I did introduce her to a few people.
I was actually proud too. I was standing.
But the church handled it.
Yeah.
Okay. The church did opposite of what she thought that they would do.
Yeah.
They just accepted her like everybody else that went on. I mean,
I was standing.
What we brag about this church.
In between services, I was standing out in the hallway with Jess, and just to paint a picture for those who doesn't, Jess is still in full. She's a full pagan witch still. She has the haircut with the cut. I don't know if that's pagan.
I don't think that's part of that.
Well, it's kind of like the whole Viking way of cutting hair and stuff on the sides and stuff like that.
Okay, I've seen it in a few movies.
She also has a Baphomet symbol, or what is it, a pentagraph? Pentagraph necklace?
I don't know the definition of some.
I don't know which one. I think it's the Baphomet symbol or the pentagraph, which is the sign of paganism or Satanism or one or the other. And she has that on the outside of her shirt. And I'm sitting out there, talking to her. And then Pastor comes strolling up. Like Pastor, I look over and Pastor locks eyes with me. And I'm just like, don't come over here. Don't come over here. Don't come over here. And she goes, oh, here comes Pastor. And he starts walking over. And I'm like, no. I was so nervous, dude, just because I didn't want.
Why?
I don't know.
About the pastor or about Jess's reaction?
Well, it's just that when they come together I was just afraid that there was going to be this clash, like, and I was just nervous about it. I get that way. I think I'm probably a control freak.
First off, there's no reason for us to be afraid.
Not afraid.
No, but I mean, listen, we didn't actually choose this. God chose us for this, and we are to be of a different mindset. Yeah. And I understand that, but he that is inside me is greater than he that is in this world.
But I think what makes me...
we can trust that God's got it under control.
I think what makes me nervous about, not the fact that she's a witch, I'm not afraid of the evil spirits or anything like that. I think what I was afraid of, because they don't believe in the same thing.
Right.
And you and I have grown accustomed on how to navigate that. And dude, pastors has 20, 30 more years on it. I know.
On top of that, you bragged about the fact that he went into a high priest
Satanist temple,
and prayed for the guy.
Yeah.
So,
but it still made me nervous. I can't help it. I was just like, oh no, please don't. It's like whenever two cats are walking next to each other going,
it's beyond your control.
You know what I mean?
It's beyond your control.
I know. I'm still a control freak. I'll admit it. Nothing? Say no, you're not.
No, absolutely not.
Say no, you're not.
I was waiting for I was actually waiting for Angela.
Angela, say no, you're not.
No comment.
Yeah. Yeah. She's not going to say. She'll say I'm a control freak too, but.
Well, most of us actually are in one form or fashion. And that is actually one of the biggest things that we have to learn to submit to. When we submit to the Lord, we give control to him.
Yeah.
But we battle that all the time because that's part of the flesh.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm thinking that's probably the best segue.
Oh, you want to go into it. So okay.
Right here.
All right. So just Larry, what we're going to do is we're going to call Dan from last episode.
Let's give it just a moment and ask me about my bracelet. That's what I had pointed at.
Oh, yeah. Hey, what's up with your bracelet?
There you go. Finally. Okay. Man, I have to throw things at him because he's in control.
I thought you were saying that's what this means, and then I forgot about it.
This is something that I wanted to share. I make these myself.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Now, I look and search for things to put on them, and I just recently finished this, actually this morning. And this is the shield of faith. Okay. And it actually has Ephesians 6 down here on the bottom.
How much does it cost
to make one?
Yeah. Do you charge to make it? I want one just like that.
Like this?
Yeah, except make mine purple. Not the bris, but just the thing purple. Okay,
I don't make this. This I buy. Okay, and I just found this at Mardell's. They don't make any of these anymore.
Okay.
So I found it at Mardell's, and then I had to drill holes in it and make it to where it would work.
Okay.
But the overall thing is, it is also, if people have noticed, I have a ring that has the sword on it, and it's also in the shape of a cross.
Have you ever thought about punching me with those rings on your hand?
And I also have a cross that I wear all the time. I'm even wearing my shirt from Battle Ready.
Yeah.
That has the helmet on it.
What color underwear you got on?
Blue.
Okay. All right, continue.
In contrary to my...
Well, you're just talking about your whole outfit.
No, the reason... I did this for a reason. Last week, I failed to put on my armor in a proper manner. See, this is all the armor of God. It all represents the armor of God. There's bits and pieces that I put on to remind me of what it's for. And I created this one. I found this one and thought it would be a good reminder as well. This one says, pray without ceasing, meaning that I'm constantly in prayer. And I let myself go last week. There were an accumulation of things that created a issue of anger in me. And, well, Satan does what Satan does.
Yeah.
And he found a way to pierce me with a couple of arrows in the middle of... Yeah. It wasn't a good time for that to happen.
Well, and I'll say this because everybody that's approached me about it, acting like I'm some sort of like I don't know, dignitary or some person that's able to keep my cool all the time. You must not attend the Bible study, and that's what I told. I'm like Larry. Larry lost his cool one time out of 22 episodes, and I lose my cool once a week in the Bible study. If you don't think I lose my cool, you don't attend the Bible study. I thought about quitting this last week. Let's be honest, man. Let's just be real. Like, I thought about quitting. It crossed my mind. I could go on and run my roofing company and stuff like that, but that's not what happened, you know? I lost my cool this week and had to apologize to somebody. So Larry had one bad day out of 22 episodes. It doesn't make it right. I'm not justifying it, but Larry's a human. Whenever we're talking to people that don't believe in the same thing, that things happens. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to call the guy, we're going to call Dan, and we're going to make it right that way, because we don't want to be like that, right? We
Correct.
don't want to be like that.
Correct. And I, first off, am not trying to justify my actions.
Yeah.
I am in no way trying to justify my actions.
Okay. All right. Well, let's call him. Well, he didn't answer. He might be on his live or something, but I told him at 2, between 1:45 and 2 Central. So maybe. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll just read that. Read your thing. So Larry's gonna do. He wrote a presidential statement. Essentially, it's I did not do that with that woman. That's basically what happened. That's my Bill Clinton, by the way, if you didn't notice. He wrote basically he's gonna be like, my name's Larry, and I did something bad last week, and I didn't mean to. But other than that, it's whatever. So he wrote one of those statements. Can you do it in the? Do you know who Jordan Peterson is?
No.
You know? Okay.
Who's Jordan Peterson?
He's He's a philanthropist or something. He's a psychologist. I've been working on his impression this last week.
No, I don't know any psychologists, but I can see why you would need.
Do you want to hear it? Well, you're probably not wrong.
All right. Hey, I typically write a devotional every morning, and I feel like God impressed me to write it in this form, and I hope you accept it. It says, "Good morning. Last week, the enemy, Satan, the devil, Beelzebub, Lucifer, or whatever you want to call the snake of old, found a crack in my armor. And of course, he exploited it at an improper time. That's his job. That's what he does, and that's why he was created. John 10:10, the thief cometh not, but for to steal and to kill and to destroy." Each of us have choices we face all day, every day. We are in a war, and we find ourselves on the battlefield more often than not. Pride and anger are key ingredients in offense, yet we all have a form of these in our flesh naturally. I used to embrace each of these reactions firmly, my drug of choice, so to speak. Last week, I had a few arrows make it through the armor I placed on each day. And to find out about the armor of God, read Ephesians 6:11 through 17. As a Christian, each day I must put each of these pieces on in prayer to protect me from the enemy. Is it completely the enemy's fault? No. I must take credit for being lax in my prayers and diligence in the application of this on this occasion. Therefore, I have created offense in others. Intentionally or not, it should not be. In the position God has allowed me, this is unacceptable. I firmly agree with what I wrote. I wrote this. I didn't find it and write it down. This is what I felt like God had me put down on paper. This is not the fruit of which I wish to be known. I hope to be known by the fruit of the Spirit, not the fruit of the flesh. The fruits of the Spirit are listed in Galatians 5:22. I am to be in control of my flesh, not allowing my flesh to be in control of my spirit. Galatians 5:16. And that's how I truly live my life to the best of my ability. My wife can attest to this. So Jesus actually tells us in Matthew 5:23, therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar first. Go be reconciled to them and then come and offer your gift. With this, I feel I must apologize for my disdain last week. it was most, I wrote it wrong, I guess. I said it was most directed and uncalled for. Please forgive me. My point with this is that in our communion, you have communion at church, but that's every so often. My communion with the Lord is each and every day, all day long. And I can't even go to him right now with this offense laying out there. So I have control over two things and only two things in my life. And that is my actions and my reactions to things. And if I cannot control those, then I've let my flesh win. And I refuse to let the enemy win. So I do apologize for my actions and my words last week. That was not my intention. It was an accumulation, and I let it get the better of me. And that's my fault. That's my reaction to what was going on. And it wasn't really what was going on here. It was also an accumulation of everything else outside of here that you don't know anything about. And it was just piled up, and on top of it, I just kind of let that go. And by putting on the armor of God and repenting to the Lord, and then asking Dan for his apology, asking Dan to forgive me by giving him an apology, I hope to reconcile that in my communion with the Lord as well. And that's what I have to say about last week.
Let's go. Round of applause, dude. That's really good. You have a talent for
Was it too short?
No. It did have a Bill Clinton undertone to it. No, that was so I always get concerned when people write out what they want to say and then read it in like a podcast setting. But you have a talent for that, for sure. Like way better. Like I could never do that.
Oh, I wrote the words. I'm not reading somebody else's words.
Right. If I did that though, it would be like I'd be like, I did not have relationships with that woman, and I promise I'll never do it again.
Well, what is the definition of sex?
I don't.
He said that too.
Oh, did he?
So what is the definition of sex?
Yeah. Well,
it used to be male and female.
Was that Bill
That's
Clinton?
not really it anymore, is it?
Well, we know that impressions aren't your knack.
No, not at all.
Good grief.
Not at all. But I do hope that Dan forgives me. I really do. And
he wasn't like this mad
is played.
about
this
it.
is played on me all week.
Yeah.
Not just something that you brought up or something that once I heard the podcast, and I did take my time this morning and I listened to the podcast and faced the bitterness of myself at that time. When we hold on to unforgiveness, no matter who you are, if you hold on to unforgiveness, it turns into bitterness, and bitterness is a root that goes deep. We can't allow that. That's the work of the enemy.
No, I know.
But we are constantly under attack, whether it's verbally. Well, we haven't got, in this country, we technically haven't gotten down to the physical part of it, but we have got down to the verbalization of the abuse towards Christians.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. That's the thing too, is like, that's what whenever I had a breakdown on Monday and in the Bible study, and I was just like, these people hate us. Like, we're ministering to the ministry that God has called Larry and I into. We're ministering to the toughest group of people to minister to by far. And I can't think of anybody else that would be harder than unbelievers. People that are either don't believe that the same thing we do, or have another set of beliefs and they're not willing to break from that. So it's very difficult, the group of people that we're ministering to. And most of those people hate us because of our predecessors or other Christians that treat them the way they do.
Well, we're also in the enemy. To them, we're the enemy.
Yeah.
To us,
and they don't know that we're trying to be different than every other Christian when they first see us.
And I failed last week.
Yeah. I mean, that's okay though. That's what I'm saying. Like, you apologize for it. Now it's water under the bridge we go, and the next one's my turn. I'm just glad it's not me this time, right? It's somebody else besides me.
Well, I hope never to be in that seat again. But at the same time, I have to be able and pliable that God, look, I'm the clay on the potter's wheel. I'm not the the craftsman.
Yeah.
God's the craftsman. So when he moves the clay and manipulates it to where it needs to go, and
Yeah.
that's just all part of what we are. So this is something that God needed to deal with me on.
Yeah. And I mean, it happened for a reason, right? Like,
Well, I used to walk around angry all the time.
Yeah.
I think Jess can say I wasn't angry while she was here this weekend.
no, nobody's ever, like, even including me, like, because I spend a lot more time with you outside of the podcast. But including me, I'd never seen you that way. I had never seen you that way either. And so
That was about 1,000th of how I used to be.
really, I know why.
I mean, literally.
I know why you're angry now. I know why. I just thought of it.
But my hair is prettier than yours.
No, it is not.
So it couldn't be my hair.
It's just dude, I had to take the hoodie off. That's the only reason why my hair looks jacked up right now. Like, it looked fine.
Yeah,
I figured it out.
I have had.
I know why you're mad now. It's because you're quitting ice cream and you're eating that Greek yogurt crap.
Man. Well, no,
Is that why?
No, it's not Greek yogurt. It's frozen yogurt. And it's actually pretty good. But my wife pointed out this week, she goes,
He said, why?
first off, I'm buying a little bitty thing for $5 when I used to buy a gallon for $6.
Do you hear how mad he sounds when he's talking about this?
Oh, man. I use those ice cream buckets for a lot of things. But she said, that's not done any good, right? It's still got sugar in it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you quit that too?
I'm going to have to.
Oh, you have?
I don't think I really have to. Summer's coming and I move around a whole lot more in summer, but my pants were getting a little tight and I was kind of, I don't get that.
Yeah. Yeah. I weigh 100. I weigh 190 pounds now too. I've been gaining weight. And I'm in race season too, which is weird.
Yeah, you got a race on Saturday.
Yeah.
Well,
Sunday.
not a race. You got what is it called? A marathon?
Marathon on Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. 26.2 miles. I'm excited. Woo.
Yeah. How do people stay excited watching somebody run a 26-mile marathon? How long does that take?
They pretty much.
How long does that take?
I'm hoping I can do it about 4 hours.
4 hours?
Yep.
For 26 miles?
Uh-huh.
What does that compute to, somebody?
About 9 minutes a mile.
9 minutes a mile.
Uh-huh.
I couldn't even think about a mile in 9 minutes.
Really? Yeah.
No.
Yeah. No, I mean, I got my goal.
You know how long it'd take me to walk 26 miles?
My goal is to get in like the 6 minute a mile
8
range.
months.
Yeah. My goal is to average a 6.5, 6:45 minute mile so I can qualify for Boston. So that's my overall goal. I want to qualify for Boston and run in the Boston Marathon.
When you make it to the Boston Marathon, can I stay here and cheer you on?
No, you're going to Boston with me.
I'm not going to Boston.
Yeah, you are.
No.
You're going to be at the finish line.
I really don't like Boston.
I've never been there. Have you been to Boston?
The bad thing is all that stuff I did in a semi. So,
okay.
Yeah, no, I don't like that kind of crap.
All right, let's get to our guest today. We're almost there.
They got little bitty narrow roads up there too.
Do they really? Let's go. Let's roll, baby. Okay, so our guest today is our first Christian witch. I don't know exactly what her beliefs entail, but I do believe that she believes that in Christian values, but she believes witchcraft is okay. And so we are going to interview her based on that and figure out what she believes. I'm so excited.
Do you know her name?
No, I don't. Let's get her name. I don't remember what her name is, but I'm sure she's here. Let me see. It's S. Razzie on here. I don't know. Let's just call her. Ready? Our first Christian witch.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, okay, so I forgot to get your name. I just did a full introduction of you, and then I didn't know your name. What's your name?
And he drew a blank.
Yeah, my name is Sara.
Oh my! You are echoing super bad. Are you on speakerphone by chance?
No, I'm just using my webcam.
Oh, you're using your webcam? Okay. So you're you don't have to do video, by the way.
Yeah. I set that up. Maybe that would have been the issue, but
do you have like a microphone or something, or maybe just a phone you could use?
yeah, let me connect with my phone real quick.
Okay.
Okay, is that a little bit?
Yes. Okay, that's so much better. Yeah, I don't know why, but those computer microphones do not do well on Discord. Okay, so tell us your name again.
So my name is Sara.
Okay, well that I did not hear that.
Sarah.
Yeah.
Sarah.
Sarah.
Okay.
Is that with an
Sorry,
H or is that with an H or without?
No H.
See, I knew to ask.
We have a Sarah in our ministry with no H. She says she don't have time for H's.
Well, I got an aunt that is Sarah without an H, and then I had a bonus daughter that was one with an H.
Okay, so I want to get into it. You are our first Christian witch that's been on the show, so welcome and thank you for coming on. Can you describe to us what that is and why it's different from Christianity?
So when it comes to Christian witchcraft, I will be the first to tell you that a lot of it is honestly stuff that Christians have actually always been doing. We call it witchcraft now because the modern association with witchcraft is not what it used to be, right? Back in the day, it was like anyone who would poison wells or ruin the fields or steal things magically and like summon evil spirits to hurt the community. Nowadays, witch just kind of means anyone who knows how to use like herbs and stones. And it is actually very much separated from the idea. We could thank Wicca for that. Wicca kind of popularized the idea of a witch being just someone who really likes to be outside and touch grass. So that's great. But a lot of the stuff that Christian witches do is very much stuff that has always been done, especially in like Catholic folk magic, right? Old folk tradition, where people would defend against witches using things like lavender or, garlic braids or any of these other, little things that we see now associated with keeping bad stuff away. They would do a lot of interesting things like my people, the Slovenians, they have a belief that butter is especially healing because there's a story about St. Bartholomew walking down the road with his flayed skin in his hand, and this woman saw him and ran out and tried to put butter on him to make him feel better. So little things like that. It's just a culmination of, mysticism, old folk knowledge, old folk tale, and all wrapped up within that Christian framework.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Do you get a lot of hate from? Well, okay. So I know the answer to that because like I'm not a Christian witch and I get hate from my Christian brothers and sisters. But I don't know if you know what we do or not. On our platform, but we minister to people that don't believe in the same exact thing as we do, and we talk to a lot of like pagan witches and stuff like that. And there's a lot of Christians that do not agree with what we're doing. So I imagine the amount of hate you get. Do you get quite a bit of hate from Christians?
Oh yeah, it's yeah, absolutely. It's to the point where I kind of just feel bad because a lot of people they'll quote the same verses, right? And obviously we can rattle a bunch off the top of our head, like Exodus and Leviticus and Deuteronomy and la la la, where it seems to say all magic is banned. And so they'll come into my comments saying, well, we should be killing witches. The Bible says we should kill witches. And also like magic is bad. It's an abomination. And I'm trying painstakingly to explain to them, no, these words mean those kinds of witches who poisoned wells and burned fields and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't mean someone who knew how to heal with herbs, like which most witches today do. It's very different, but they just refuse to hear it. They refuse to hear that there is a spiritual path that isn't quite like theirs, that there is a way to God that doesn't look the way they're comfortable with it looking. So,
do you,
and it's very interesting.
Do you believe Jesus is God?
The more I learn, the more I kind of am with Jesus on not responding to the question outright.
Gotcha.
And more just saying, maybe, maybe not. Who knows? Who really knows?
Okay. Do you believe he's the only way to heaven?
I believe he is a way. I don't think he's necessarily the only way.
Okay. Gotcha. So whenever you're doing witchcraft, who do you call on the power to use? Like whose power do you use? I should say.
God's. I'm always calling on God directly.
Okay. Would you say you have the Holy Spirit living inside you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so.
Yeah. Okay. How long have you been doing this?
So I kind of first started picking it up when I was a teenager. I was about like 13, 14 when I started getting interested in the witchcraft side.
Yeah.
And so I've been doing all this kind of stuff since then. And lately, the past couple of years, I've been ever more interested in the theological side of it. So now I'm kind of developing more of that minister side, and, learning to be a chaplain and learning all these kinds of other deeper mysteries and other things like that. But it's been a good 12 years overall.
12 years. Okay. How old are you?
I'm 26 in September.
Every time I ask a woman how old she is, I'm like, you're not supposed to do that right after I ask
How old is she?
Yeah, no, that doesn't even cross my mind as a mean thing, so it's fine.
Thank God.
Larry, 26.
She said 26, Larry. Okay. Oh, by the way, I didn't even go around the room and introduce everybody like normal. I'm sorry. We had a weird show, this show, because we had a hiccup from last week, so we had to call the last guest in the beginning of the show, and then we did an intro, and then we're calling you, so it's a little bit of a weird show. Okay, so let me go around the room. Normally we have producer Mark here, but he's out of town, so we don't have him. We have my beautiful wife Angela back there in the producer section.
Hello.
And then we have my other beautiful co-host Larry.
Beauty is not part of my description. How are you doing?
Very good. Hi, Larry.
And
Good.
then
Nice to meet you.
I'm Zach, and this has helped my unbelief. I don't know if you've watched anything of what we do or not, but this platform is not designed to argue or anything else like that. We pretty much just listen, love, and just we take this approach to where we just basically listen to people. I feel like that's the big problem is we're not listening to each other, right? Why do you believe what you believe? How did you come to believe it? And stuff like that. I just feel like we need to do more of that. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I saw some of your guys' stuff, and I like what you're doing. I think it's a great thing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And so, yeah, we were always we've always been interested in the whole Christian witch community. We haven't really got the chance to talk to somebody because what you mentioned with the Catholic Church. I know we had one of our friends on Indy, and she said when she was younger that her family did like crystal work and stuff like that, and they worked with spirits and stuff in their Catholic tradition. They performed witchcraft essentially. Is that kind of what you do?
Yeah, I mean, more or less, right? So this is why it's very funny when you grow up Catholic and then you start looking at witchcraft and you're like, wait a minute. Because the truth is that magic is how you operate religion, right? Like what we understand as magic, that's what being in a religion like entails. I mean, you're talking to this invisible entity, you're expecting a response somehow, and you're trying to figure out how to discern signs. You're trying to figure out what a miracle is, how to do it, right? If people have the Holy Spirit, you should reasonably be able to do things like that. We have saints throughout time, all the way up to this like last century doing actual bona fide official miracles. So at some point you got to wonder, all right, if we're all here, there's got to be something more to it than just the physical world we live in. And witchcraft, as we understand it now, that's how we kind of access it, right? And how we understand it. And so, with crystals and stuff, I mean, Saint Hildegard von Bingen, who was a doctor of the church, wrote a whole thing about how stones have power from God. They were made by God and they're full of heavenly energy and the devil hates them, things like that.
The devil hates
I'm
rocks?
not familiar with that. What leader of the and which church are you talking about?
The Catholic Church. She was canonized actually this century, Saint Hildegard von Bingen of Germany. She was alive in the Middle Ages in like literally year like 1005. And eventually in this century, she was canonized and considered a doctor of the church, meaning her writings were extremely important to the development of church theology. And in some of those writings, she describes how herbs and stones are filled with God's heavenly creative power, and that the devil himself can't stand them because they're so beautiful. They remind him of what he used to be before he fell.
Well, the only example, just since I've been reading through the Bible, the examples of like rocks in the Bible would be Moses struck a rock with or did he kick it or something? What did he do? And then stuff came out of it?
He struck it
And then stuff came out of it?
Water came out of it.
Oh, okay. Not the manna or whatever?
No, manna fell from the sky. They needed water. Moses struck the rock at one point. The second time he was supposed to speak to the rock, yet he struck the rock in anger.
Yeah.
And that's what he was punished for.
And then another one was God said that if we didn't worship him or something, that
The rocks would cry out.
That he would get the rocks to cry out to him, right? That's two examples of rocks in the Bible.
Yeah, and there's more as magical tools, right? Like the crystal grid on Aaron's breastplate as a priest. There's the Urim and Thummim, which are basically like almost like runes, right? Like one has yes and one has no written on it, and that's how they talked to God. They would ask God a question, and they would fish around in that pocket, and if they got a yes stone, it's a yes. If they got the no stone, it's a no, which is basically divination, right? And we also have in Revelation describing heaven as built in 12 layers of different crystal.
Huh. Okay. And so like basically, would you say Ouija boards? Do you believe Ouija boards are okay then? And do you believe you're speaking to God in that example?
I believe you could use them that way. They are just another tool, but I think the best allegory I've ever heard for an Ouija board is like if you were to live in a busy place in Manhattan and you opened your door and let whoever was walking by into your house. That's kind of what it's like using those. So that's like not the best because stranger danger exists even in the spirit world.
Yeah.
But you could bind it so that only God could use it. And that way, that'd be one thing. Like I use tarot cards regularly and I have them all blessed and consecrated to God. So it's up to God who's using them and what's going on.
Okay. Okay. So, if I were to ask you what your most intense or craziest spiritual experience was, which story comes to mind? Like one experience that you're like, whoa, that's the most spiritual experience ever. Do you have a story that pops in your head when I ask you that?
Oh man, I mean, I have a few at this point, but in terms of, I think most emotionally obliterating and intense was probably, so on my page, I have this series running called Interview with the Gods. And it's where I actually go and I investigate, right, these other entities, these other gods that people worship. And it's all kinds of spirits, gods, angels, saints, even demons. And it's very interesting. But the most intense one I've ever done has been an interview with Jesus himself. That, I mean, between the things he showed me, I got a whole, like, Jesus-style parable out of it. Like, the whole thing start to finish was such a ride. And it was a really emotionally exhausting ride because that was an episode where instead of me thinking of questions to ask Jesus, I opened it up to all of, my followers who are also people who have been very hurt by the church or who don't believe anymore because of such kinds of reasons.
Yeah.
So I said, what do you want to ask? And the questions were very heartbreaking. Like, does Jesus hate me? All these kinds of things. So I'm asking these questions and you could see Jesus' face just like so grim and long because it was such a heavy conversation. And there was so many wounds that needed healing from other people that I basically carried over to him.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we do what we do, is because whenever we started this ministry, well, first of all, we only designed this show for atheists and agnostic. We really didn't have witches and Satanists and all that other stuff in mind, but God kind of slowly put those on our map as well. But once we started, we had a pagan witch in our church last week that we interviewed on our show. And like Larry said at the intro of the show, I know you weren't here, but he said he was very proud of how our church responded to her, because out of like what, this is episode 23. So out of the 23 episodes that we've interviewed people that don't believe in God anymore, would you say that probably over 75% of them have been hurt by the church?
Yeah. There for a while, it was 100%.
There for a while. Yeah. I think it was 100%, Sarah. I think it was 100% until like episode 9 that everyone that we had interviewed had been hurt by the church. And when we got into this, we were just like, and then you read the Bible and you grow in your relationship with God and you're like, wait a second, like, Jesus never intended for us to hate any group of people or cast them out or not make them welcome. like Pastor Gary said, that at one point we were making it extremely difficult to become a Christian whenever Jesus made it simple. Right?
Right.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And sorry, guys.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Larry.
Well, no, we were actually, Dee Dee discussed that in Ambassadors today. And she said, find in here where there's a prayer to pray. All Jesus said was, believe in me. Accept him in his heart. That, in their heart. That's it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even though we have, as a church, turned that into a prayer that you need to say, it is just a guidance. It's not an actual written down prayer that needs to be said. It is a guidance of how to accept. Because, like, when I talk about putting on the armor of God, people don't get it. When I say beat my flesh into submission, people don't understand that. So it takes a little bit to explain it so that you can understand it.
Yeah. Yeah, there really isn't a prayer. That's why whenever people come on my lives and stuff and they ask me to lead them to the Lord or whatever, what do I need to do to get saved? I don't lead them in a prayer. I'll tell them how I did it, and you go in your bathroom and you give your life to the Lord. Like they have to do that, It's not some
the thief on the cross said,
yeah.
He just recognized Jesus, and Jesus said, today you'll be with me in paradise.
Yep. So I feel you there, Sarah. It really is sad, isn't it?
This is where, like, especially me, like the Christian witch community specifically is kind of like a little island between two countries at war. It feels like, because you've got Christians on one side, and obviously not all of them, but like a lot of mainstream Christians who just, they don't get it, they don't understand, and then they lash out at what they don't understand. And then you have the witches who grew up in that, hated it, left it, and then just decided that the entire thing was not worth it and a mess. And so they're always just kind of flinging dirt at each other, and we're sitting there in the middle getting caked on by both sides. But especially, at least with the Jesus interview, I remember there's so many comments where people were like, I'm a witch and I feel like I can come home, or like, I'm still a witch, can I still work with Jesus? And the answer is yes. Jesus will happily hang out with anybody. Doesn't matter who the hell they are or who they work with. If you ask Jesus to be there, he'll be there. But so there are actually funnily enough, a lot of actual Luciferian or Satanist witches who are like, yeah, sometimes Jesus pops by and we just hang out. Like, it's very interesting. But, a lot of it is like, no, Jesus doesn't hate groups of people. Jesus doesn't want this kind of division. And he certainly doesn't want Christians to use his name to justify hurting other people.
Well, how do you reconcile? This is just a question. This isn't me attacking you or anything, but how do you reconcile the thought process that God is a jealous God and doesn't like other gods? How do you reconcile that within your community?
Oh yeah, this is a great question. Actually, so when you really look at the Bible where he says that, first of all, a big thing people forget is that the entire Old Testament is actually just a spark notes of the Jewish Bible. So these 10 commandments that he gave to Jewish people is a lot different than the Noahide covenant, or like the thing that's with all Gentiles. So in the Bible, right, when Jethro is talking to Moses, he's like, oh, I now see that God is greater than all gods. But he never renounces other gods. He himself was a pagan person. He didn't renounce his other gods, and the Jewish people didn't expect him to. Never once do Jewish people expect Gentiles to renounce their gods. They just recognize that God is their God, and that's like the highest for them. So Christian witches interpret this to be like, well, a lot of us are Gentiles, and a lot of us have ancestral gods. Like I know I do as a Slavic person. So the way we see it, have no other gods before me means that God remains the absolute tippy top, and everything you do has to go through God first. If you want to talk to this entity, if you want to work with that spirit, you ask God's permission first. And generally, so long as you give him that respect and you acknowledge that he is the highest, he's fine.
Okay. Gotcha. So would you say you subscribe to universalism, that everyone's saved, that everyone has a spot in heaven?
I mean, I think whether or not we go to heaven as it is, like I believe in a lot of things. I believe people can reincarnate if they have more to learn. I do believe, though, that people's salvation isn't really a question. So people are always so worried about, oh, but don't you want to be saved? I'm not worried about that because, yeah, I'm pretty sure that everyone goes to heaven. They might need some time to work through some stuff they did. They might need to burn away some of the things that were not true to themselves, but they are not lost forever.
Okay. What kind of authority do you think the Bible has? Like, what do you think it is, and what kind of authority do you think it has?
Oh man, the Bible is such an interesting story. And I was actually just talking to one of my friends who's an Episcopalian priest last night, and we were talking about the Bible is a wonderful story, and it is divine because it is so human. It is so tragically, fully, hilariously, wonderfully human, right? Like there are so many interesting stories in it and so many just expressions of human nature. And do I think God inspired it? Kind of in the way that like when you watch a movie on Netflix and it says inspired by a true story. In that regard, sure. But like for the most part, I think what it really is just a very long explanation of what people can understand. And it's God's attempt at trying to show us a better way forward. But I don't think that like it's necessarily the be all end all. And I think a lot of Christians get in trouble because they hyper focus on the Bible to the point that they forget that God still exists and is still speaking.
Okay. What do you make of the end of the world, the book of Revelation, the end times prophecies and stuff like that? Do you subscribe to any of that? Do you believe that there's an end times coming into the world? Do you think it's going to be carried out by God, or what do you believe about that?
The way I see Revelation is more just an allegory, like for Rome, if anything else. I think that, eventually all things come to a natural conclusion. Our world is no different, but I don't think it's going to be exactly like Revelation said. I think, things will just happen and something will wipe us out and something won't. I don't know. I don't really put a lot of thought into it.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's going to be any of this rapture, whatever nonsense that people go on about.
Right. Okay. Are you from Jersey?
No, I'm from Rhode Island.
Oh, okay. Oh, dang. That's twice now. We interviewed an atheistic Satanist, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he had an accent kind of like yours. And I guessed Jersey, and he said no. And I've been sitting here hearing you talking. I'm like, this one's got to be from Jersey, and it's not. Rhode Island. Okay. Do I have an accent to you?
A little bit. I pin it as kind of Southern, but I don't know.
Man, I've been trying so hard to get rid of it because down here we talk like this. We get wild down here.
I like all kinds of.
Yeah. Larry, you got something?
Yeah, I'm going to ask a question, and I'm trying not to word it offensively.
Okay, well, good luck, because don't take us down a path of last week, Larry. Please.
No, but
I'm actually going to hide under the table.
I'm just going to reiterate what she's already said. Okay, you don't think that Jesus is the only way to God. You think that there are other gods. You find Revelations not as in a prophecy, but a nice little story. You know that the world will eventually end because all things do. That means that you don't really have a reason for it. It just, things kind of play out. Basically, the world in itself is much like life. It has a beginning and an end. You think the story of the Bible, or the Bible is a story, and it's not really directed at mankind, just basically to the Jews, and it's kind of been adopted by the Gentiles. So at what point are you a Christian?
Well, I think we got to back up with the Bible. And what I said was the Old Testament. The Old Testament is the Jewish Bible. Everything in the New Testament is fair game. New Testament is a wonderful ride. But I don't think it makes one not a Christian to acknowledge the reality that the Bible is a blend of myth and history.
Okay, so what is your definition of a Christian?
My definition of a Christian is just someone who believes in the teachings of Christ and follows Christ and loves God.
And which you do that, but you just don't think he's the only way to heaven. Is that correct?
Yeah, because if I think about it, right, I mean, there are three major world religions that worship the same God. We've got Judaism, we've got Christianity, and we've got Islam. And all of them believe they're going to heaven in different ways. So it doesn't make sense for there only to be one way, especially if there's three entire religions that are claiming God's name.
Well, as far as Islam and Christianity goes, one of those has to be wrong.
They're totally opposite of each other.
One of those has to be wrong, and we're just using the law of excluded middle on that, right? Because Christianity, we claim that Jesus is God, and Jesus claimed to be God, and Jesus also claimed to be the only way to heaven, right? Well, Islam claims that Jesus was just a prophet, but they still say, good, great guy, just a prophet of God, right? In which they both worship the same Yahweh, right? I don't know if Islam claims Yahweh as God. I don't know. I don't know that. But either way, the law excluded middle tells me that both of those cannot be true at the same time. And the reason why is either Jesus was exactly who he says he was, or he was a liar. Right? I mean, wouldn't you say that? What would you say to that?
I think that's kind of reductionist. I do think that two things can be true at the same time. And again, Jesus never really outwardly goes out and says, I am God incarnate. Like, he doesn't say that. He has Peter who says it, and he's like, oh, cool, good for you. But Jesus is actually very shady when people try to pin him with that. That's why it's kind of like, I think there's more to the story. I think Islam specifically believes that Jesus will come back and be this thing, but he hasn't been it yet. So it's really a question of, can we pin down divinity by something as silly as time? Does time matter? Can Jesus be the Son of God and just a prophet at the same time? Who really knows? Divinity's weird. Divinity does weird things. So for me, I think that's not even the point. And I think that's what Jesus is trying to say too. He's like, regardless, that's not the point. What matters is however you get closer to me is how you need to see me.
Okay, I got a Bible verse for you here. I want you to just tell me what you think it means. John 8:48 through 59. He says, "Before Abraham was, I am." What does that mean to you?
Well, he's the Word made flesh, right?
What's that?
Like Jesus himself, he is the Word made flesh.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
That's kind of.
Yeah. He says he was the Word.
And again, I think we take things that Jesus says so literally. Before Abraham, I was. Okay, that doesn't necessarily need to mean literally. Like, and this is where it's kind of funny because Jesus will specifically talk in parables to trick people, because people who don't understand it don't get to know the cool secrets. So when we get a sentence like that, to me, what it says is like, he is someone who can stand before even the one who made the first covenant. Someone who understood God first before anything. Does that mean literally as in he is God incarnate? Maybe. Does that mean just that he is really, really deeply connected to God? Also maybe. There's a lot of different ways you can interpret things like these.
And what about this one? Okay, this one for me is the one that convinced me in particular. And I want your input on this. And then those are the only two but this is the one that convinced me. This is where he was fixing to write the 7 letters to the 7 churches in the book of Revelation, the beginning of the book of Revelation, right? And Jesus says this to John in the vision that he gave John. He says that he is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. Which that's how God claims himself to be, right? He says he's the first and the last. It's okay. Revelations 1:8 through 11, and I think he says it again. Revelations 22:13 is what I'm reading here. He says, "I am the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last." that to me, I was like, whoa. When I read that, I was like, yeah, that sounds like Jesus is claiming to be God there. What do you think of that one?
Well, if we're talking about Revelation, my first thought is that that's a really comforting thought, and Revelation was kind of written to be a nice, comforting story for people who are being persecuted at the time that it was written. But also, I think there's an idea that Christianity forgets about, and that is the idea that bearers of the divine name can speak as if they are God. So, like an angel, or even the angel Metatron, who used to be the prophet Enoch, they can be bearers of the divine name, and that is basically God using them like a cell phone. Jesus himself becomes a divine cell phone, and God speaks directly in first person through him. He's done that several times throughout the Bible. So it could also just be a case of that.
Do you not ever like worry about that? Like where you're like, man, what if I'm on the wrong track here? What if Jesus really does want to be worshiped, him and him alone as God? Does that ever worry you?
Nope, because I've looked God right in the eye and I said, if I'm doing something wrong, tell me. Otherwise, speak now, forever hold peace.
Wow. Wait, I got to back you up. You've looked God in the eye?
I mean, figuratively, right? But I've looked at God and I said, listen, I'm doing this because as far as I'm concerned, you've given me permission to do so. If I get to those pearly gates and you told me, haha, joke's on you, I'm going to be like, that was kind of messed up. The hell was that about? And I'll argue my way all the way downhill.
Yeah.
You think that would work, arguing?
Probably. It's worked before.
Well, I don't know. It's just, I think we have to take the afterlife seriously. I don't know. Like one thing, I don't know where you're going. I don't believe I have that authority. I don't believe I've been given that task to tell you where you're going, but I think we should take it seriously. And, I don't know. That's just kind of a scary mindset, to have that Jesus is willy-nilly. I think we have to wonder if he really is, we have to believe that he is who he says he is, right? Because I don't think the book of Revelation, first of all, was written for people that were going through a troubling time to comfort them, right? Because it was written by a guy who had been banished to an island for God knows how long. And who knows how long it had been since he's 8, and he was given a vision, right? And technically, John wrote the book of John, which is the 4th gospel, right? You have the synoptic gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and then you have the gospel of John, right? And John wrote the book of John after he had been given that. He'd been taken up to heaven by Jesus. So John had seen Jesus in his heavenly form, and then he wrote the book of John. So John wrote the book of John after seeing heaven. So he wrote Jesus' story from a heavenly perspective when the other 3 synoptic gospels were written from an earthly account, right? So I think we have to take those 2 letters that were written very seriously. And I'll tell you this, man. I'll tell you one person that walked the earth that did think Jesus was God, and that's the Apostle John. And I think that's clear. And I think we have to take that seriously. I would encourage you to look into it a little more. But who am I?
Well, I mean, that's the thing, though. I mean, no, again, I have looked into it, and that's why it just clicked for me. Oh, you guys think the Gospels were actually written by who they're named after? Oh, yeah, that would do it. But no, I don't believe the Gospels were actually written by any of these people, and a lot of evidence suggests that a lot of these were just written much later, and then also had the name slapped on them for authority. In fact, Deuteronomy does that too. Deuteronomy was not written by Moses, not even close. But likewise, we have these Gospels that they weren't written by these people.
Where do you get your information for that? Because
actually, my Bible.
That's in your Bible. Well, my Bible sits right here, and it says author John, and it says the date of the writing, and it says that he also wrote not only John, but 1 John, 2 John, 3 John, and Revelation. That's what I'm reading it right out of my Bible. when I turn over to the beginning of Luke, it says Luke was the author. He also wrote Acts.
We just finished Deuteronomy today. And I think it spoke about Moses in the third person, didn't it? And so maybe
Here's Luke, says author Luke.
so maybe I agree with you that Deuteronomy wasn't written by Moses. What was it supposed to be written by Moses or something, Sarah?
First 4 books were written by Moses.
Oh, well, but Deuteronomy, I think, spoke about Moses in the third person, though. That's why I would see where she was getting that. Does that make sense? Is that why you're saying that, Sarah?
It's opposed to mine.
Oh no!
What version are you
books.
using?
I got the Jewish. Yeah, I got the Jewish Study Bible, which is crazy good. It's so good. It's so full of like annotation, scholarship, and all these other wonderful things. I've got the Jewish annotated New Testament. As the goal of that is to put Jesus back in his cultural and political context that so many Christians like to forget, which is Second Temple Judaism. And in those, it does a lot of great scholarship to say, yeah, actually this, that, and the other thing, these weren't really like what we have from the scholarship now. These books weren't written by who we classically think they were written by. In fact, even if you go into like Paul, we're speculating that it's someone else entirely that wrote Paul. And there's a big tradition in the Bible in general, across the whole thing, because it's not univocal, right? Of people using the names of great figures like Moses or like the apostles to write certain things as if they were writing in a school of thought, right? So it's like if I were in Plato's school of thought, I could write something and say Plato wrote it. And then there you go. Now Plato wrote this thing, even though the sentence structure doesn't match, the writing style isn't right, the handwriting isn't correct, the time period isn't correct. Doesn't matter. Now it says Plato wrote it because I'm using Plato's train of thought. So that's what the Bible does a whole lot. And a lot of the Gospels kind of boil down to that too.
Well, that's a great way of discounting everything in the Bible by saying it was not written by who it's written by. That's pretty good.
But that only matters if you take the Bible literally to begin with. If you don't take the Bible literally to begin with, then you understand that there's deeper esoteric meaning in it that doesn't depend on how accurate it is. Church fathers argued centuries over whether or not the stuff was accurate. It was such a thorn in their side. But now, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that much.
She's just telling you what she believes.
Right, and I'm listening.
Yeah. Your nose is starting to flare, and I'm just trying to get you calmed down.
I'm not.
This to me is what being a Christian is, right? Even if you told me, yep, this wasn't written by that and this wasn't written by that, that's okay. Because it doesn't really matter to me. At the end, I have experienced God personally. I've met Jesus personally, and I know the gist of the story, and that's all I need. I don't care about, the origins of Judaism and their Canaanite roots and the Mesopotamian Zoroastrianism, Yazidism, and all these other different places that they clearly drew inspiration from. What matters is just that I know God, I know Jesus, I know the Holy Spirit, and I understand the message they've been trying to convey for the past several thousands of years through this very human, very crazy little book.
Yeah. So I want to address this, and then I got a question for you. I want to address this. So I think I remember now at the end of Deuteronomy, it talks about Moses' death and the fact that nobody knows what happened to Moses' body, right? And so how could Moses possibly have wrote that? So that's my question of because you say your Bible says that he wrote Deuteronomy.
Well, to be honest, just because he's the author of something doesn't mean that he actually had to put pen to paper. He could have been telling his scribes, and the scribes actually wrote it.
But how did?
And then it wouldn't actually be Moses writing it, so therefore you can probably get by with saying that. But yes, it does have his death in Deuteronomy.
Yeah, but his death and about that nobody can locate his body. How could he have possibly influenced?
But there's an issue there that I understand, that some people look at the Bible as a book to read, and I don't.
Well, I don't either. But
I use it as the flesh was made. The Word was made flesh. So this is the Word, and it was made flesh in Christ, in Jesus.
Gotcha.
So I see it as truth, and an infallible truth.
You don't look at it that way, Sarah?
I don't see it as it
Sarah,
can be discounted.
What he just said, you don't look at it that way. The Bible is what he just said.
I think that the Bible has a lot of truth that is hidden behind layers and layers and layers of parable and traps.
You don't think it is
because
the
right,
truth?
like I think it's a compilation of things that reveal truth, but I don't necessarily think that the Bible is like, to me, the Bible is just ink on paper. That can never really be the whole divine essence of God. But also, I do want to go back just to answer the question, Deuteronomy. It's a counter charter. It was written in the time just around the reform of King Josiah to kind of spit back in the face of the Neo-Assyrians who were trying to force a charter on them. That's where we reinforce the specifically Israelite culture, custom, religion, and tradition, and we separated again from all the other things that were starting to encroach on them culturally and religiously.
Okay. Hold on? We have a question in the room. Hold on.
Hello, Sarah. My name is Lyndall. I'm just normally sitting here observing, but you've obviously spent a lot of time in study and research and very impressive knowledge, and they've been delving into the Jesus side of it. So I want to kind of come at it from a counterpoint and along those same lines of thought, but what are your thoughts on the Satan in the Bible? Do you believe there is a Satan? Just kind of curious to hear your thoughts on that side of the whole story.
Yeah, that one's really fun because, again, if you look at Jewish understanding of Hashatan or the adversary, that is a title, and that title goes to God's own angels, right? So Hashatan or Satan is the adversary that challenges us and tests us and tries to catch us looking stupid. So that's like in the story of Job, right? Where an angel of the Lord says to him, I don't think Job is really in it to win it. And so God's like, all right, bet. And they test the hell out of him. They take everything from him. He still stands strong. And so the adversary is proven wrong in court that day, right? If God's the judge, the adversary is the prosecutor, right? And so in Christian thought, we've kind of warped this into some big like boogeyman. I think it's kind of silly because what we've done is the opposite. Instead of having an adversary to test us and test our spiritual mettle, we've made this boogeyman that we can kind of cast all of our responsibility for our own actions off onto. And that's what I see a lot of people, Christians, like using that as, which really frustrates me.
I kind of agree. I don't agree with what you're saying completely, but I feel like far too much we do that. We're like, Satan's doing this and Satan's doing that. When most of the time it's just, you made a bad decision. You know what I mean? Like, that really is what it is. But I do believe that there's obvious enemies, but there's an obvious enemy and he wants nothing but to kill, steal, destroy, and he roams around like a lion waiting for someone to devour. But a lot of times, you're just making a bad choice. You know what I mean? So did you get your answer, Linda?
I mean, and there is a concept, right, of an egregore. And this is something that, again, it'd be really helpful if Christians came into witchy spaces and understood these things, because an egregore is this thing that you think about so much. When enough people pour their thoughts and beliefs and energy into an idea, that idea comes to life. So is there something that wants to just see the world in ruins, roaming the earth right now? Probably, because we've fed that idea for literally centuries. I have no doubt that this thing is now out there actually causing problems. But is that what Hashatan originally was? No, not at all.
Okay. Well, what was the message that Jesus said to you when you met him face to face? What was that message? What was the...
Actually,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I have it to read on my TikTok. There's a link to it in my bio, but it's a written thing, and it's a massive thing. It's like 7,500 words, but it's a whole, just basically conversation of all the questions I asked him and all the things I saw and all the things he said.
Give me a brief synopsis of what it was. Is there a way to do that?
A lot. There are so many different topics because, again, there are so many people asking so many different questions. But a lot of it was that people are too divided, right? Like, they're too divided to the point that even groups trying to help each other, they just end up screwing themselves up. Like, for instance, let's think of the LGBTQ community. It gets to a point where the infighting makes it impossible for them to unite against the people actually trying to do them harm. There's a lot of infighting. There's a lot of like things going on in that community, which I am a part of, that is just like demoralizing, right? Especially because we have a common enemy, which is people trying to take away our rights. Meanwhile, you get down and dirty with them and they're fighting about whether or not bi people actually count as bi if they're dating someone of the opposite gender, like silly things like that. That Jesus was like, y'all, things like, say, with the Holocaust. That was a very raw image of Jesus beating on the gates of Auschwitz, screaming, crying, howling that something like that could happen to his people using his name. Things like that, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Okay, fair enough. So we're at the end. We're at the end of this show so far, and I want to just explain to you how the end goes to our show. So everybody in the room's just we're gonna go around and say like a final thing in closing to you, and then since you're our guest, you get the final say out of everybody. Okay, you get not the final say, but you get to say something at the very end. We let our guests say the very end thing or whatever. Okay, so Angela, do you have anything? No? Anybody over there behind the table, since we don't have a producer, anybody have something final to say? No? Okay, Larry, give me a Bible verse. You got to do a Bible verse this week. You made people mad last week when you didn't give them Bible verse.
Well, my question is, what is your definition of faith?
Faith to me is synonymous with trust.
With
trust, she said.
So it's not a question of like, oh, do I believe God's real? To me, it's a question of trusting that he's real and trusting that he's carrying me forward where I need to go.
Okay.
I see I'm trying to grasp your point of view. You have to understand that with your knowledge, I have to admit, you have a lot of knowledge on a lot of things.
I've Googled like four things that you said today.
And I don't have a Google on me. So I'm just curious how you handle certain verses. And I've been looking for it. I have been looking for it.
Which one is it, Larry?
It's the one that talks about witchcraft.
There's a bunch of them in the Old
there's
Testament.
Like 3 or 4. No, there's a couple of them in the new ones too. I was trying to find that, and it just eludes me right now. I can't hear.
Do you mean like about certain topics or just like in general?
In general, but I think your definition of actual witchcraft is different than most anyway. So I don't know that would.
Do you work with in your witchcraft, because we've interviewed
spirits?
Do you work with other spirits besides Jesus?
Yeah. So, the ones that I keep close are some of the Slavic gods, right? Like, again, I'm Slovenian. So the old gods of Slovenia, they're very sweet and they feel like extended family when I'm with them. They feel like I remember them or know them from somewhere. And then also I do work with Lucifer. So, I have Michael, the Archangel, and Lucifer in the same space quite often, which is always a treat because they act like rough brothers together.
Yeah, man, you have to understand, this is our first time ever talking to a Christian witch before. And for her to say that she works with Lucifer kind of blows what little hair I have back on my head. Does that make sense?
No, yeah. I mean, actually, there are other Christian witch friends I have too. Like some of them work with Asmodeus, and like I goof on Asmodeus a little bit, but I don't have anything against him. But I have friends who work with Asmodeus or Belial, and other such. I've talked to a lot of these entities myself. I've spoken to Azazel and Belial and King Payman and all these ones, and like they're very interesting beings. They're very complicated and complex, but Lucifer specifically is a title, and that title refers to the angel Samael. And an angel is still an aspect of God, whether we say he's fallen or not. Samael is still the venom of God.
Galatians 5:20, Larry.
Really?
Is that going to be your verse? It may be one before 5:20 because it starts talking about. But Larry reads a Bible verse to our guest every episode, and he didn't last week, and everybody got pissed. So we're gonna have to.
Well, I've been asking the Lord for several different verses and kind of show me what he wants me to tell or talk.
Well, I'll tell you this: the Lord knows we don't have all day. So.
Well, then you go on, and I'll cut in.
Okay, I'm gonna say my last thing, and then Larry will give the Bible verse. So, first of all, thank you so much for coming on and being gracious to us. I really enjoy these conversations, and I really get interested in learning all these new learning all these new different types of belief systems and stuff. I will tell you this, that I do read the Bible under the lens of every single person that I've interviewed. So from now on, when I read the Bible, I will be giving what you say to me a fair shake when I read the Bible. So I will be doing that. And I don't mean this to sound weird, but I do love you. I love you with the love of Christ. And I would wish I would wish no harm on you in any way, shape, or form. In fact, if anybody ever tried to harm you, I would defend you 100%. So thank you so much just for being yourself and coming on the show. And I wish nothing but the best for you, Larry.
I'm going to thank you for pointing that out, because I do think Galatians 5:19 and 20, probably just 21. I'll go ahead and read 19 through 21. The acts of a sinful nature are obvious: sexual immorality, impurity, and debauchery, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions, factions, and envy, drunkenness, orgies, and the like. I warn you, as I did before, that those who live like this will not inherit the kingdom of God.
Just FYI, the word witchcraft in that Bible verse is the Greek word pharmakia, which is kind of uses the same word that is used for pharmacy.
That's where pharmacy comes from, is pharmakia.
Which could mean medicine and stuff like that.
So that's where I was going with this, with her definition of witchcraft, and the typical person that, like me, that thinks of witchcraft is a little bit different than what she was trying to explain.
So do you consider, Sarah, do you consider what you're doing idolatry, since you're like working with other gods besides Jesus? Would you think that would be considered idolatry?
And
no, because idolatry was a very specific charge. It was like people used to carve their gods into stone and literally try to pull their gods from heaven and trap them into that stone. And that's where they would live. They had spells to open the nose and open the mouth and try to feed them. And that's why it's so important that God says, hell no, you will not put me in a rock. All this food on this altar, I do not eat it. I am not like these other gods. That was the point of idolatry. You don't stuff God in a rock.
Okay. And then will you respond to that Bible verse, and then the floor is yours. Respond to that Bible verse Larry just read, and what your thoughts on that is. And then the floor is yours, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thank you for bringing up pharmakia, because this is actually a great place to mention that I'm actually with a friend writing a whole book about this topic. And this verse is one of the ones that I wrote about in terms of explaining why it doesn't apply to us. Because again, right, pharmakia refers to black magic. It refers to poisoning and deceit and harm and like all of these nasty.
Did we lose her? Come back.
You said Genesis 2.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah. Sorry, I know you guys kind of phased out a little bit.
I hope you weren't talking for like 30 minutes, but okay, so we lost you at the part where you said that it was talking about black magic, and then you cut out completely. So take back off there.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. No. So again, it's talking about black magic because people think that the prohibition of magic is something specific to the Israelites. In reality, no nation, not the Romans, not the Babylonians, not the Assyrians, nobody liked this specific connotation of magic, because it had to do with that which was like basically bad religion, right? It was outside the bounds of social norms. It was something that could potentially ruin the social order of things. Like kings could do nothing against a magician who could basically influence the gods and the stars. And so this idea of black magic, of like pagan, peasant magic specifically, like people at the ground floor messing with spirits to harm people or bring someone else down. That's what a lot of these verses refer to. And that includes pharmakia, and that includes Exodus is Mekashepa, and Leviticus is Kishpu, and all these other words. They specifically refer to people like calling for others' demise through this kind of magic.
Yeah. Oh, the internet went down. That's why I can't pull up your Bible verse, Larry. That's why we lost her. I had to pull off the church internet, and I had to pull off of it. So I can't pull up that Bible verse. But yeah, I agree. I agree with what you're saying there, Sarah, we should never hurt anybody for sure. So Larry's question was about the Bible verse that said Lucifer fell like lightning. Why don't you just ask the question? Like, there's a Bible verse that says that someone saw Lucifer fall like lightning.
In communication with Lucifer and Michael and Gideon, and you're saying you kind of acted like Lucifer was not anything bad.
I think she believes Satan and Lucifer are two different beings, right?
Well,
Sarah?
let's verify that then.
Yeah, they're different.
She thinks
they're different
entities. So you feel like
But then Jesus says in the Bible, I saw Lucifer fall from the sky like lightning. He didn't say
Jesus said that, or was it in a different verse? Because I know there's one that refers to, "O son of the morning, Nebuchadnezzar."
Jesus said
Nebuchadnezzar was a
it's
king.
in Luke 10:18. It says Jesus said, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. The context of these words is the return of the 72 disciples that Jesus had sent out to evangelize and prepare his way to Jerusalem. So it's Luke.
Okay, the one son will get to Satan, yeah. So I guess they just use that interchangeably.
Luke 10:18. I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven.
Okay.
So you think Satan's different from Lucifer? You think they're two different entities, right, Sarah?
Yeah, again, Lucifer's a title. It just means light bringer. So people have even used that to refer to Jesus. It doesn't really mean like any one specific person. That's why I say the angel I'm talking to when I talk to Lucifer is Samael, which is a specific angel, and is considered a fallen angel. But there's a lot of, we don't have time to get into this, but there's a lot of philosophy and mystic theology that would suggest that one of the ways in which to learn about God is to learn about what he's not, right?
Yeah.
So
that's
kind of
what do you think? Do you think there's, you did say earlier that you do believe in demonic entities. Do you communicate with these entities at all?
Not regularly, not outside of Lucifer and like whatever I guess more mystical things I'm trying to do or interviews. In terms of actual demons, I've seen them. I know more or less what they are. And they're really they're just little guys. They're just little tiny spirits that live to stir the pot and cause trouble, right? So, I wouldn't blame a wolf for eating my face off if I was stupid enough to get close to it and let it eat my face off.
Right.
Likewise, I'm not going to be mad if a demon comes and ruins my life if I let it do that.
Okay, so we're going totally off the rails of. We're normally very how do you say that?
Structured.
Yeah, we're structured in how the show goes, but I'm so interested. I've got so many questions that we'll just end up hanging up at some point. Well, okay, people that listen to the show, we've already done the structured part, and so now I'm just asking questions. So I want to get this straight. You believe Lucifer is demonic, you believe he's bad, and you still work with him.
I don't believe he's bad. This is, I guess, one of the terms we can add to the word bank is infernal divine, right? So rather than just being like, oh, these guys are demons, a lot of them aren't demons. Like Baal-Hadad is not a demon. He's a Canaanite god, right? Like Leviathan isn't really a demon. He's kind of he's a sea serpent, who hilariously Baal also kind of beat up at one point in his own myth. So there are some that we could consider, I guess, bad, maybe, but when I interact with them, they're not bad. They just have a very different way of going about things. Like, I would recommend certain people work with the infernal divine because some people are really bad, say, with like boundaries or like telling people no. The infernal divine are awesome at that. They can really help you tell people to piss off, right? Whereas if someone like me who really needs more of that mercy and learning that patience, I learn a lot more from God in these aspects. So it's very give or take. I wouldn't need to work with someone like King Belial, the lawless one, because I'm already very much rough and tumble when it comes to authority figures.
Can I make a suggestion? Moving forward in you may, I'm just saying this because the Bible says that you have to test every spirit, test every spirit. And it says how to do that is, the spirits that testify that Jesus is Lord, those are from God. And then the spirits that do not testify that, those are not from God. The Bible gives you a very easy way to be able to test these spirits. So I would suggest moving forward, I don't know if you already do this or not, but if moving forward, then that's a good way to interact with these to figure out whether they are good or bad, if that makes sense.
And I've definitely done that before, except the problem is the spirits that believe that they will look at you like you have 5 heads, right? So like Saint Dismas being the thief that was crucified beside Jesus. I asked him that, and he's like, duh, yeah, like, do you see where we are? Do you see this place? Because we were in his paradise. He's like, absolutely, that was a stupid question. Like, so sometimes it's kind of just, you already know, you don't really need to ask. Is my thing. And even then other times when you ask, they're like, I don't really care. So yeah. I'm not going to sit here and say that King Belial is a spirit of God. King Belial would probably, I don't know, just laugh at that point. But that's because he's King Belial and he doesn't really give a damn either way.
She's talking about Belial she's saying it just a little differently than.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Belial.
Belial than what we say it around here. I just now got that, and I was just wondering if there was anybody else in the room that. Okay, well, Sarah, I mean, thank you so much for coming on. That's just you really very interesting point of view. It's just proving why we do this. That we have so many there's so many different belief systems out there. I wish you nothing but the best. And so if I post clips of you on social media of our conversation, you don't mind that? And do you mind being tagged in them? Do you want to be tagged in them?
Oh yeah, I don't mind. If I get tagged, my only thing is sometimes people will stitch me, and then I'm like drowning in comments for like 2 days. Yeah. So, I mean, you could, if you think your audience won't become half of my block list, then sure.
No, that's why I asked that, because I understand fully that sometimes my audience can go after the people. So I kind of give you the choice of whether you kind of want to remain anonymous or if you want to be tagged in it. It's really up to you. Wait, it doesn't come out for another week, so I'll just talk to you again in private before then. How about that? And we'll decide on that. Sound good?
Yeah, no, that sounds good. Thank you guys again for having me on. It was great to talk to you as well. I wish you guys all the best as well.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Take care, girly.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks.
Okay. Is it... I needed to find out whether or not it was in Revelations or in Genesis where it describes Lucifer's fall from heaven.
It's right here. It's in Luke 10:18.
Luke 10:18.
Luke 10:18.
Well, no, that's about I saw him fall, but I'm talking about the description of, because in that particular part, doesn't it not mention his name Lucifer?
Larry says Revelation says it too.
Lucifer. I want the one that says Lucifer took a third of the angels. I'm wanting the one that says by name Lucifer.
I think Zach's looking it up.
It says right here, Luke 10:8, Jesus says, I saw Satan. Oh, you want the Lucifer one. Okay.
Yeah. And there is one where they're describing the angel of Lucifer. And I could not remember if it was in Genesis or if it was...
I got a clue when he starts getting mad, by the way. His nose starts flaring. His nose starts flaring out like that. And that's what I said. I said, bro, you better stop that nose flaring, dude. We can't go down. Hey, if that happens again, you need to wait at least like 6 weeks before that happens again. You hear me?
I didn't do anything.
I know you did great. You did great. But I'm just saying, your nose started flaring. I was like, here he goes. Look, he's doing it now. He's about to do it on me now. Which, if you do it on me, it's better. Okay. Okay, here it is. It's Isaiah 14:12 through 17. It says, how you are fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning. How are you cut down to the ground? So, do you want to read that? Okay, go ahead. Are you going to read it?
Yeah, well, I proofread it before I got there. My book actually doesn't say that. You said 14:12, right?
Isaiah 14:12, yeah.
Yeah, I got Isaiah 14:12. It says, how have you fallen from heaven, O morning star, son of the dawn? You have been cast down to the earth, you who once laid low the nations. You said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit enthroned on the mount of assembly, on the utmost heights of the sacred mountains. And it goes on. This is an NIV version. It actually does not say Lucifer, but here's my whole point.
This is New King James Version.
Yeah, that's the one I expected. I forgot I got the NIV with me. But all I can see is deception. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, if she's calling...
We're not supposed to disagree with them, but at the same time, if she's,
No, we can
she's
disagree.
calling them friends,
Yeah.
and I can't.
It's okay to disagree with them, Larry. It's just not okay to like call their beliefs like crap. It's okay, and then to be
But
angry.
this one, this has been...
This was a hard one, huh?
Well, it is
Because she says she works with Leviathan. She says she works with Satan.
She's 26 years old and she acts like she knows everything there is to know. You couldn't correct her on anything because she had to answer back. How does she have an answer back at that age? She has that because of that of the misleading that Lucifer has done.
So here's the deal.
But she labels herself as a Christian.
Yeah.
Which to me, a Christian follows Christ.
Yeah.
It doesn't follow other stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't call myself a Sooner if I'm following the Cowboys.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, we're from Oklahoma, so that's the two colleges in case you don't know.
I don't believe it's our job to say that she's not a Christian, but I would agree with you that the definition of Christian is a person that follows Christ. Yeah. That follows Christ.
And then let's just take the word love, okay? Let's take the word love. The word love should actually have a meaning to you that when you say, I love you, your heart pounds with that love, okay? I mean, whether it be brotherly love, sisterly love, or love for my mom or my dad or my wife or my kids, that love is supposed to be. But we have contaminated it and watered it down so much so that it no longer has that meaning. I love car. I love that color. I love the house. And this is an influence of Satan to get that word to not have as much meaning.
It reminded me of that movie, Anchorman. Did you ever watch that? Where that guy was going, I love lamp. I love carpet. And there's like, Brick, are you just looking at things in the room and saying you love them?
Yeah, I think I ran across that and found it.
Here's what I noticed.
But that's the truth, is it, right?
Yeah.
We water things down to where the definition becomes wrong. And if we're going to be the salt, Gary spoke on the salt of the earth. And if we're going to be the salt, the only way for salt to be less salty is contaminated.
Yeah.
And that's why God says to be the salt of the earth. But if we contaminate it down enough, then it's no longer effective as salt.
Yeah. Here's what I notice. And what she believes, right? And what she believes in, because our authority and everything that we believe in comes from the Bible. Would you agree with that? And that is the undying, living, breathing word of God, right?
If one part of it is false, then it's all false.
Right. So her way, like the only way that she can hold on to her belief system is to not believe that, because we were using that as our authority in the conversation, right?
Yes.
And in order for her belief system to be true, she as soon as she said that, that's whenever we don't have to argue with her anymore. We don't have to argue. We don't have to do it, because she's basically telling you that she doesn't believe the Bible's the undying word of God. So once she says that, then we don't have a leg to stand on. Does that make sense? As far as our argument with her, because she's like, well, I don't believe in that. So
that's why I tried to not flare, I guess would be a good word for it, was when she said Jesus is one of the ways, not the only way to the Father. Right there.
Well, it's scary.
Right there is a misconception, because he is the only way, because only through his blood are we made righteous.
The scariest thing, I just now thought of it. The scariest thing that she said was at the end of that conversation. She said, some of them don't want you to ask them who Jesus is. And it's like, No crap, they don't, man. No crap. Want to know why? Want to know why they don't want you to ask them? Because they'll have to tell you the truth. And then if they tell you the truth, then you'll be able to test those spirits. Maybe she just doesn't want to. Here's what we'll say. We can pray for her, ask her if we can pray for her, whatever that is. And then go from there. Maybe she will get a little older and do some research and stuff like that and come, move along in it. So
if we had, I don't know what, there's like 3 or 4 of them in the Bible study that used to be witches and didn't understand the influence that they were under then. And they had the Wicca, or they had this, and they just thought they were lightly touching this over here. Right.
Yeah.
And then boom, over here. I mean, the proof of it is in Samuel in itself. All right. Samuel's talking about Saul, and Saul went and consorted with a medium to pull up the spirit of Samuel so that he could ask for direction on a battle. And Samuel's like, why do you bother me?
And then
now that kind of bothers me in itself, because so a medium could actually pull up somebody. So that means that that's possible. To me, I honestly don't.
Some people think that was a familiar spirit, by the way, that it wasn't actually Samuel.
I have always felt that.
Yeah.
I feel like if you go to a medium and you say, I want to talk to my mom, a spirit comes in and
the Bible
portrays your mom.
The Bible, yes.
It's not actually your mom.
The Bible talks about
and it misleads you and tells you crap.
Yeah. The Bible talks about familiar spirits. Let's look it up. Familiar spirits in the Bible. Let's see here. Leviticus 19:31. It says, refer to mediums and familiar spirits and forbids being involved with them, as they are an abomination to the Lord.
Right.
So familiar spirits is someone, because we all have spirits that hang around us, right? We all have spirits, demonic spirits that are around us that know us quite well.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree with that?
Well, I have anger. We just discussed that earlier, and and offense is one, and I mean, and what's the other one? Anyway, I talked about it earlier. Those are spirits.
Yeah.
You can call them whatever you want, and it doesn't matter if it's in Greek or if it's in Hebrew or if it's in English or if it's that spirit is that entity that comes in and tries to penetrate the armor.
It says here, familiar spirits and spirit guides are under the control of their master, Satan. But here's why I think this one in particular, this one's belief system is a little more dangerous than even just witchcraft in general. And I want to explain why I believe that. And now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, right? Because witches, like pagan witches and stuff like that, understand the difference between good and bad spirits and purposely stay away from them, away from the bad ones. And they try to do some things to cleanse the bad spirits out. Well, even though we do believe there is no good witchcraft, right? This girl just works with the bad ones and just doesn't believe they're bad, right? She goes to the top dogs theirself and just believes they're not bad. Like, it would take a lot for her to be convinced that that's not true, right? Like, it's just, hers is kind of, her belief system is just kind of all over the place, like she believes anything can be true. There's no absolute truth. She believed that, you notice she said that two contradicting ideas can be true at the same time.
Yes.
So there is no absolute truth.
That one, I can't wrap my mind around that in itself.
Well, and I know, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not talking crap on her. It's just that's why we had so many questions for her at the end, is because it was fascinating, because we just couldn't wrap our head around the things that she was believing. So.
Truth is truth is truth. That's how I believe.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. There can't be different shades of gray. You know, I'm not using that phrase at all, but there can't be different shades of gray. There can't be different shades of black and white. Let me go there. You can't have a different shade of black and a different shade of white and be partially true on things. No, it has to be completely true. And it's what I believe is 100% true, is what the Lord left us, which is his word. And the word was made flesh. So that means Jesus. And that means that following Jesus is the most important thing there is, because he, through his blood and his blood alone, through his blood and his blood alone, not the blood of animals, not the blood of anything else, not a warm bath or a baptism. It's the blood of Christ that gives us the righteousness. The baptism is a action that verifies our belief. It's important because Christ was baptized, and we're told to be baptized.
You don't believe that being baptized is a necessary, it's required to get in heaven, I should say?
Then explain the thief on the cross.
Right.
Okay? No, I don't. I do think that it is an outward expression of an inward change. It is just the same as wedding vows. Okay?
There you go. Yeah.
It's the same thing.
You can be married and not
external expression of
a covenant to God.
Yes.
That you made to God.
Yes.
Was between you and God. Yeah. I agree with you. I agree with you.
But
I think it's important.
But if I gave my heart to the Lord for the first time and then I died before I got baptized, would I go to hell? No.
I don't think so.
I don't think
either.
so, because nor did the thief on the cross.
I don't think so either. Now if you've gotten saved and you just haven't done it, you're being like stubborn behind it. I'm still not saying that you wouldn't be saved because of that, but it's kind of like, where's your heart at on this? Like, I think we should follow the ultimate example, which is Jesus Christ, because he himself got baptized by John the Baptist. So him as our leader, right? You should if you really trust who your leader is, you should at least be able to be willing to do what he has done.
I also like the way that Pastor Gary a couple of weeks ago explained the Trinity, because we do in our mind. The Bible says that Moses, okay, spoke to God face to face, and that Moses was a friend to God, and yet he still was punished for his disobedience. Okay. So that's why I backed her up on that particular statement. Wait a minute, you said you've talked to, eye to eye. I wish I could. I want that closeness with God. I do know his voice. I have heard his voice. I've communicated with him verbally, but at the same time, he gives us a directive to follow, and we are to follow that.
Yep.
And it all goes through the blood of Christ.
Amen.
I mean, I can't reiterate that enough. It is the blood of Christ. And that was God's sacrifice was his own blood.
I agree with you.
The blood of Christ.
Well, knock me down, brother. Thanks for coming back. Thank you for your apology.
Did you want to call Dan since he called during the middle of that?
We're too late. You said your apology. We're at 1:49 in, so we'll just call it good. Do you want to call him?
It's up to you. I don't want him to think.
Why don't you just reach out to him in private?
Sure.
Okay. Let's just do that. You reach out to him in private, and then he'll see this as well, that we're going to put this out on the podcast, and we'll go from there. But, thank you for your apology. I really enjoyed it. I didn't know what you wrote either, so it was really good. I enjoyed it. And I know I don't want to be that way either, and I've got to work on it every day, because I do what Larry did last week. I do that once a week. So, love you, brother. Thanks for coming in, man.
Well, we all forget. Each and every one of us have a battle that we're facing each and every day.
Yep.
And this is, in fact, a battlefield.
Yeah.
And we are down to the last days. And our job is to help people find the Lord.
Yeah, it is.
It's not giving people a platform to say contrary, but it is to help find a way to push that one button that shows them that Jesus does love them no matter how far that they've gone.
Yeah. We want to do it differently than everybody else does. We don't want to be like Christian apologists. We don't want to be like argumentative. We don't want to be anything like that, which I feel like we did that today. I feel like we did a good job of that, having a healthy balance and a healthy conversation. yeah, I think we're doing a great job. It's obviously hard. What we do is hard. Our ministries, it's not easy. It's not easy. And that a guy came into my life today and was like, be honest, dude, you're doing this for you, aren't you? This is all about you. And I was like, what? It's like, what are you talking about? Like, what do I get out of this? Like, what do I get out of this? I don't get anything out of this. Like,
wait a minute.
Hold on.
No, I was going to say, wait a minute. So we're making money now?
No, I don't get anything out of this other than being able to say that I'm walking in obedience to God, which is plenty.
Yeah.
Which is plenty. That's enough. That's all I need. But in what he was saying, he's saying like, let's be honest, this is about you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? If it was me, I would just go focus on my roofing company and hang out with my family and take vacations and do all that. If I was doing it for me, that's what I would do. But this is for other people, because I do agree with what you just said. I believe that we're in the last days and we're in the last moments. And I believe the people that we're ministering deserve to be ministered to as well. So
if we looked at it like this is the last opportunity, because we don't know. If this was the last opportunity talking to us to hear the word of the Lord, or a listener perhaps listening to the word of the Lord and finally making that decision for Christ before they perished. We don't know if this is the last words they heard, but we don't want it to be argumentative, but we do want it to be definite.
I never thought of it that way, honestly. That's a good way to put it. What if we were the last conversation that these people were to have?
Well, I try my best to live my day that the people that I interact with, that may actually be the last time they get to hear anything about the Lord.
Yeah.
And I need it to be positive.
I didn't look at it that way. Yeah, it's kind of crazy that you put it that way. What if it is? I mean, you can't pat them on the butt, and I don't know what that means, but you get what I'm saying. Like, you can't just.
I was trying my best to stay away from it.
You just can't piddle fart around, is what I'm saying. You can't you can't not tell them the truth.
We have a mission to tell them the truth.
Yeah, you can't just not tell them the truth.
If we lollygag about it or I don't really think I should tell them something, then, we're actually doing wrong. We're in disobedience.
We just have to be careful not to be loud and like aggressive and mean, and your nose is flaring and you got flames shooting out of your ears.
Okay, I'm already loud. I'm already aggressive in my witness. I am very aggressive in my witness. Yeah. I talk to people about Jesus everywhere I go, and most of them just see me and he's going to say Jesus loves me again.
Great.
Here he comes. Here's
the Jesus loves me guy.
I don't care if I would love to have a shirt that said Jesus freak on it. That would be like my favorite shirt, because I want you to see it on me and in me and about me and through me, and everything that I do represent Christ. So
I think you do a good job.
There are times that I get a little too aggressive, perhaps, or a little too defensive when I don't need to defend Christ.
Well, maybe that's
Christ didn't defend Christ.
Maybe that's why God picked you, is because I'm not aggressive enough and you're too aggressive, and maybe we'll balance each other out. But one thing I noticed that she said that I think that we should put into action is where she says that even groups of people that are designed to be together are separated, and they can't get anywhere because they have too much division in between their own group.
They have too much pride.
And I think we at Help My Unbelief, our team, I think that's the number one thing that we should focus on, is making sure that we in this room are together.
Yeah, pride was the other thing.
Because if we're not together, the team that's in this room right now, Satan's gonna whip our tail all over the place, man. We at least have to be together. That's the number one thing. If I could say that we need to focus on.
United we rise, divided we fall.
That's the thing that we should focus on. Right? Am I right?
Yes.
Amen. Okay, let's wrap it up. We're at 156. What do you think? Tell them.
Jesus loves you, and so do I.
Thank you for watching. We are out.
I'll take you home.
Thank you so much for listening to the Help My Unbelief podcast. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And more importantly, tune in every Tuesday at 9 a.m. for new episodes.